Sauce.
Hey, you late, Paz?
It looks like that. Here's Heaney from the boundary line. He's an expert at these. From the boundary line!
Hello and welcome to Behind the Boundary podcast. I'm your host, Pez. I'm here with Sauce. We just had a big round of semi-final football and a bombshell that hit the Twitter world yesterday. And it came out all guns blazing today with Neale Sauce requesting a trade back to the Fremantle Dockers.
Absolutely huge news, Pez, especially after what we witnessed on Saturday night, one of the great finals from the Brisbane Lions and the Western Bulldogs. And as early as Sunday night, it came out in the media and it got dropped on Channel 9 in Perth. And all day today we've been waiting for the confirmation from the Brisbane Lions. And so Neale has expressed his want and need to go back home for personal and family reasons.
Yeah, it came as a big shock to me. I wasn't going on Twitter last night, Sauce, on the Sunday. It is Monday today. And you sent me the little screenshot of a verified Twitter member breaking the news. And I was sitting there going, you have to be kidding me, because hearing stories about how Lachie Neale is with his group of mates up at Brisbane and going to each other's houses and, having a drink on the weekends after the games and stuff. I thought a very, very strange decision. But you read into it and you've got they left Perth originally because they didn't want that lifestyle. And then obviously they don't like Brisbane too much and they want to start a family and they want to bring them up in Perth. Yeah,
it is really, really interesting because all reports coming out of Brisbane, as you said, sort of, Pez, is that they're a tight group up there. They were building something, and that's all we've heard for the last 5 or 6 years there, that they're really building something in a community and they're building up the football club from within. They seem like a really tight group, and after experiencing such a heartbreaking loss on Saturday night, then 24 hours later they come out that, hey, they've expressed that they want to they want to go back to Perth. Lachie Neale's wife, they're looking at having some kids, and they're all from Perth. Their family's from there. She's now finished her bachelor degree or her university degree that she was doing. So, to return home. And the biggest thing, Pez, is though he's breaking that 5-year deal that they traded for him 4 years ago.
Yeah, well, they've 1 year left on the deal, and a Brownlow medalist up there. They've, been up the top, if you can even say that, but haven't been winning in the final series. The furthest they've made it is into the prelim last year when they won the first final against the eventual premier Richmond and played at the Gabba against Geelong in a prelim and lost. And they've been out in straight sets in another 2 years, including just gone past on Saturday night by a point. So, big shock for me. I thought they were going to, keep that group together, get a couple of their injured players back together and give it another real hot crack. They'll still try and do that, Brisbane, and they'll have to see what they can get back. But he's still contracted, and no one in the AFL usually does this. But what they can do is turn around and say, you're with us for 1 more year, like what Geelong did kind of with Tim Kelly, and said, you're just playing for us, we're going to go for it all.
Yeah, we saw Geelong do this a couple of years ago, as you said, with Tim Kelly. They reloaded for one last shot, and they got to the prelim, and they unfortunately couldn't get past Richmond again that year. But a lot of clubs don't do it, and I think this is a really unique one, Pez, because there's so many sliding door scenarios that you can do here. Fremantle, obviously, when they sent him off to Brisbane originally, Brisbane gave up picks 6, 19 and 55, and they were getting a 26, a Fremantle player in his prime, and went on to win a Brownlow, obviously I think the next season or the year after. But for Fremantle to take him back now, they're getting an older player who struggles to get on the park, and they would have to obviously give up a fair bit, because Brisbane, they still believe that he's an elite AFL midfielder, and I don't know if Fremantle have the cattle to sort of to get something back in return. So Brisbane to get something back in return.
I think Brisbane are going to ask the world, considering he's a contracted player, and he can't just walk through free agency or anything like that. The good thing about Fremantle is Adam Cerra has already asked for a trade, and he wants to move back to Victoria. So maybe they look into a 3-way deal there. And lucky enough, Carlton have, I think, pick 6, which is what Brisbane gave up for him in the first place. So maybe that can be a part of the deal somewhere, but I'm sure they'll want a little bit more than that. And I don't know if a pick is really the best thing for the Brisbane Lions at the moment either, because a ready-made midfielder to slot into that rotation instead of Lachie Neale would probably be more wanted from Brisbane. So very interesting to see how that works in the off season.
It is really interesting, Pez, and it's something that definitely will develop over the off season. And for fans of the show, that's one of our favourite times, the way that they wheel and deal, and that trade week that sort of ridiculously goes for 5 days and it's just intense as anything for 5 days. But this is a story that's going to build, and there'll be a lot of opinions come around of it, Pez. But a question without notice: if you're Brisbane, do you trade him away or do you try and reload for one more year and keep him there?
I'm going one more year, and I know what comes into place is humanitarian type things and saying he wants to start his family, get him over there. But I think one more year, put him back in there, get a healthy Brisbane Lions, put Eric Hipwood back into that forward line. You put Daniel McStay, who didn't play on the weekend. You put Cameron Rayner back into that forward line as well. They had plenty of injuries to their forward line. Their midfield was all right. Their defence was pretty good. Harris Andrews looked pretty good in that fourth quarter, which I'm sure we'll speak about later on. He looked good up forward, but they've got a lot of different pieces there, and I think Lachie Neale is a big piece that either takes a lot of attention away or he just accumulates a lot of the pill and can really get the job done. And we've seen him, dominate a season and win a Brownlow. He had 46 disposals in the first final. He played a decent game, 28 or 29 disposals on the weekend as well. So, I'd keep him.
Yeah, you're right, Pez. It is one of those age-old questions. If you're running like a business and if Brisbane can get enough back that helps them compete for a premiership, that's what they've got to weigh up, Pez, is, if they're to do this trade for a team that finished, fifth, they need to be getting better. So, and that's what you look at the deal. If you're looking from a strictly business point of view, they do the trade to get better. They don't do the trade to get worse. So picks in the draft, and unless they're getting an established midfielder or something that they can fit into their ready-made lineup, we don't want to be closing the window any sort of distance at all, Pez. You want to keep that window open, and if anything, you want to make it so it's a clearer shot at the premiership. And I just don't see this deal, and looking at Fremantle's list and knowing that Fremantle sort of got the upper hand here because Brisbane have been through this before. We've seen them do this before. They did it with Beams, and they sort of gave him away for basically nothing, and they did the humanitarian thing. But I just don't see Fremantle being able to offer enough to make Brisbane better, and that's what you're going to do when you're doing a trade.
That's what they're going to look for. So if I'm Brisbane, I'm definitely listening to all offers that get put on the table, but I'm not just. I'm going to do a Adrian Dodoro from Essendon and play real hardball and not offer anything up too easy and take it right down to the wire to see if I can get the most for my list. So to give Chris Fagan the best chance of coaching them to a grand final berth next year.
And I guess the other question, Pez, that I've got for you is, what about West Coast? Like West Coast are in a unique situation where, a lot of people had them in the top 8. They sort of bombed out towards the end of the year. With an injection of someone like Lachie Neale there, going back to his home state, would that be something that West Coast would look for?
Am I still Brisbane Lions? Because I'll say, yep, I'll do that. Give me Elliot Yeo. We'll take Elliot Yeo back.
That's not a bad little trade. There you go, Pez.
That's a first name I'd be asking for West Coast anyway, but we don't know. West Coast are in a bit of turmoil with the season they had and what's happening with their aging list. So we'll see if any of those guys are up going somewhere else in free agency or up for trade or discussion. It'll be very interesting. But the other thing that we do have is we've still got 4 teams left in at Source, but we just did have the semi-finals on Friday and Saturday nights. So we do have to review those games and talk to those games. There was a couple of whipping games of finals footy with a lot of controversy and a lot of course, footy fans unhappy in the Twitterverse.
Yeah, it was. Let's start off with the Friday night game, Pierce. This is probably the less controversial game in terms of the way the game was played and the way that the score sort of ended up. You had Geelong taking on the Giants, and the Cats sort of controlled the game for 90% of the game. There was a lapse in that sort of third, fourth quarter where they had a game high 38-point lead, and they sort of. They allowed the Giants to get back in there. They got it down to 20 points with some quick goals and some quick movement, and they looked like they sort of might have challenged Geelong, but Geelong were just too strong. Hawkins went fantastic, Pez. He kicked 3 goals and really, really showed why that forward line can be really dangerous when it's up and firing. Yeah,
I felt for GWS really before the game when we heard the big news about Jesse Hogan, because one of the avenues for them to win the game when I was putting on my GWS hat last week included a big part with Jesse Hogan taking those contested marks like he did the previous week against the Swans, but wasn't able to happen. Their forward line structure just couldn't get into it. They didn't have any idea. They had Taranto up there who wasn't being involved in the game. They needed him in the midfield, and then they wouldn't have anyone up forward. So Geelong, I think, dominated in that first quarter. Just couldn't capitalise. They couldn't get anything going. The second quarter was quite even, and then I think the third quarter was when Geelong really broke that out. But the biggest thing for mine for that game was the inclusion of that, I don't know what you call him, the halfback type player, which wasn't Tom Stewart because he's injured, but it was Zach Tui who took on the reins of that with his elite kicking around the ground, and he was everywhere.
It really showcases Geelong's strength when they have that player in there. Like Zach Tui obviously played a modified role, and when him and Stewart are in the team, they're incredible to watch the way they operate in that back line. But you're right, Pez, having someone so versatile like Zach Tui to fill in that sort of role, those short, smart kicks as well as those big, booming, long kicks. And not only that, Pez, he looked like he hadn't missed a game all season. He looked incredibly fit. He was around the game. He had, I think he had 29 disposals, Pez, 31 disposals, and he was absolutely everywhere, especially in that first quarter when, the game and the tone was really set. He was able to not take on the intercepting role, Pez, but just to anchor that quarterback style that we've seen from Geelong over the last couple of years and really, really set up the rest of their midfield. It was allowed, Sam Menegola to play more of a natural role in the middle. Cam Guthrie was fantastic, had 25, and, all the other sort of Geelong midfielders that we normally see pop up, they just did their role, and it was just something that Geelong has missed over the last month.
Oh, yeah, well, most definitely. You had Tom Hawkins on fire up forward, Cameron chipping in with 2 goals as well. But a couple of players that, always go under the radar that haven't always been massive fans are, but Brad Close, just a young player, he kicked his 2 goals. But one for mine, he doesn't touch the pill a lot. He had 14 touches, was Jed Buse, and he's been in the side for a long period of time. And, when he gets the ball, he loves to take on an opponent and gain that extra 15 or 20 metres, and he's been doing that this final series.
He's definitely a player that Pez for Geelong supporters that doesn't lack confidence, and ever since he came in, and that's sort of what ensured that he was able to get a consistent gig in that Geelong backline, and just taking on the ball, and when he seems to have so much time as well, and I think especially what's really happened over the last month, and especially this final series that you've seen. Again, he seems to just be able to create so much time for himself, and he's really come into his own. And, that experience for the last couple of final series, he's able to bring some poise to it and make the right decisions. And I think that, that really stood out. I would have totally agree with you, Pez. I thought he was fantastic on Friday night.
Yeah, and someone that probably wasn't quite as fantastic had, I think there was three crucial errors, included a miss kick, an area in the goal square, was the young Max Holmes, who's been in and out of the side all season. And I'm not sure if Geelong have another more experienced player to put in against Melbourne, but it felt like he was running really well in that half forward line. He was tackling, he was doing all the good things. But when the ball came to him a couple of times, whether it be a fumble, a hesitation, or whatever it was, he made some pretty big errors that didn't cost the team in the end. But against a Melbourne side in a prelim final, that pressure could get to a young player like that.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those players that you're right, Pez, has been in and out of the side, and the finals pressure definitely was very evident to him. He probably needs probably another year, another preseason there, but what might work in his favour was the injury from Parfitt, doing his hamstring early in that first quarter. So, you would assume that he, probably Dalehouse comes back in, maybe Simpson. Zach Guthrie was come off the substitute bench. He was fantastic as well. I think that he probably keeps his spot in the side, but, only because of the Parfitt injury. I think that, with Parfitt in there and they might get someone else back, that he would definitely probably looking at an unfortunate week off in a prelim.
Yeah, that's right. I would have loved to see this game with the big fella up forward in Jesse Hogan, because Lockie Whitfield was absolutely everywhere. They gave him the ball at every single occasion that they could. And sometimes teams will shut Lockie Whitfield down and give him, 12 to 15 disposals in the game and, really shut him down. Geelong didn't seem to care. They were like, all right, Lockie Whitfield, you take the ball on the wing, you do this. We're just going to defend better behind the ball because you guys don't have a forward structure. And I think in terms of that, I don't know if it was out-coached or it was just undermanned for the GWS Giants.
Yeah, he was fantastic, Pez. And I like what you said there, that every opportunity they were giving the ball to him, and he was making the right decision. Him, Hopper through the middle looked fantastic. Kelly had a quiet 25, Pez, but he, again, they're such elite users of the footy. Do you know who game I really liked from GWS was the big Mummy. I thought Mummy had a huge impact around the ground, and he saw definitely in that last quarter, definitely going to be his last game, but he was injured and bruised and battered. And, he was a huge part of their success this year.
No one's talking him out of retirement again for the fourth time. As many times he's retired.
Give him a couple of pies. I'm sure he'll sign another contract.
Yeah, I'm not sure he will. But the other one was Phil Davis, who also came in struggling to get a game, but came in for Jesse Hogan and played down back, and they restructured a little bit. So interesting to see if Phil Davis goes around again, and where GWS stand in their list. They've still got heaps of young talent. We saw Bobby Hill kick an absolutely amazing goal in that game. You had Sam Taylor, who's had a decent season. He was shut down by the Cats' ball movement in the forward line, and he couldn't get his intercept game going. But he's a really good one there. They've got pieces around there. Can they compete again? Yes, of course they can. We have to see what they do in the off season. And one that's really interesting for mine is Steve Canelio, because ever since that documentary came out, I think he's been teetering with his form, and I'm not sure that he's up to it. Definitely not up to it as the captain.
Yeah, and I think the only thing that will save his job this year, Pez, is Toby Green's indiscretions and missing most likely a couple of games into next season. But I totally agree, Pez. They were one of those teams that they started the year, we're almost doing the season over, Pez. They started their season 0-3, and they've had a range of different injuries throughout the year. I looked at the finals. They do this finals ladder thing where it talks about how many games their players are missing. They had the second most player games missing through injury with 761 for that final series. You add a little bit of bit more experience in there, and some of those guns that are sitting on the sidelines through suspension or injury, and they're a decent side. Like we've seen them when they get into September. They know how to win in September, and that is really crucial. What they need to do is they need to, as you said, go back to the drawing board, whether it be coaching, whether it be cattle, whether they've got the right list there, and they need to work out how not to put themselves in a race for 8th and get themselves in that middle, 5th, 6th, and make it actually a race for the top 4.
Yeah, one of the most injury-prone clubs over the past 5 or so seasons. But interesting what you say there is they had a few people missing, and everyone spoke about Toby Green and, of course, Jesse Hogan, but not many people spoke of Tom Green. And Tom Green into that midfield, that inside midfielder, frees up those other players to play more on the outside and continue to go. So that one player in Tom Green would have made an absolutely massive difference as well. And 35 points in the end, really comfortable to Geelong. They get to go to the prelim. I'm guessing it's either Adelaide Oval or Optus Stadium. I don't see why it wouldn't be at Optus. And they get to, they had a massive lead against Melbourne not many rounds ago, round 23, where Melbourne stole the top spot off them. And can they do that again? And can they hold on this time, or have Melbourne figured them out? So it's going to be really interesting when we get to preview that later in the week.
Yeah, definitely will, Pez. Until then, let's get on to the other game, the Saturday night game, the one that everyone was talking about, Pez, because it was a 1-point thriller. It was going deep into that fourth quarter, Pez. I thought we were going to have extra time, and there's some interesting decisions that sort of put some players in positions to be able to score, but definitely one of the finals for the ages, Pez.
Yeah, finals for the ages, which was ruined by something that I hate. And I hate this in finals footy. Every time I watch footy with you, or every time I watch footy with anyone, whenever it is paid, I say, geez, do I hate these sort of free kicks. And the one I'm talking about is 78 all, under 2 minutes to go, a ball up in the middle of the ground, and they've paid a ruck free kick. And no one knows which way it's going, because no one ever knows. I think you get the two people in the ruck, you go, all right, go hammer and tong. You just can't drag them to the ground or anything, or grab them by the jumper. They're the only rules. And then you just go, and I'm not going to blow my whistle, because the strongest bloke in the ruck can get it down and do whatever they need to do that. So I hate ruck free kicks. I've been on record of saying that before. And did it lead to a Western Bulldogs score? Well, yes, it did, because the ball went inside 50. And would have I loved to see a better finish there? I can't believe I'm talking about a better finish in a 1-point finals game source, but a better finish in terms of more fair 78 all and you're fighting it out and you're not just giving away a little free kick in the ruck there.
Yeah, and Pez, like, you look at the free kick, and yes, technically it's correct, but it was the first ruck infringement all game. And to me, there wasn't enough in it to in such a crucial point of the game to be doing that. For one, the ball wasn't even thrown up or wasn't bounced straight up anyways. Like that's taken into consideration. The other one that that really annoyed me, Pez, was there was 3 minutes left to go, and there was the downfield confusion that was caused, Pez, and the free kick was correctly reversed, I guess. McCarthy throws defender to the ground, 50 metres off the ball, but very titty-tatty going into the Brisbane forward line with a game so close. And I just really question why that is called then. And, traditionally in finals, Pez, any sort of sport, you hear it from every sort of fan, the last 5 minutes, put the whistle away and let them play. We don't want a game decided, whether it be correct or wrong. Now, it's different if the guy absolutely belts the living shit out of him. That's a bit different. Or if the ruck free kick is a clothesline. But these technically correct ones is not what we want to be talking about with a 1 point game on the Monday morning.
No, and that's all we are talking about, but that was absolutely bullshit as well, because you saw on the replay, McCarthy's the one getting held and he's moved his arm to kind of retaliate. The free kick wasn't just a free kick where he was in the Brisbane Lions forward line there. They actually went to where the ball was, about 60 or 70 metres away, Source, and gave the Bulldogs an opportunity to go forward from there. And it might seem like we're just saying, hey, the Bulldogs shouldn't have won this. There was so many free kicks throughout the game, Source, that, went the other way as well. But the ones you always remember are the ones in that final 5 minutes. When there was 13 minutes or so on the clock, the commentator said, all right, the umpires have put the whistle away here. This is fantastic. And I was sitting there going, this is going to be an absolutely amazing end. And it was. You got to take out those decisions and see what happened. And the biggest moment for me, it wasn't even a game-winning score in the end, but Bailey Smith on the left foot, I have not seen a more arsey goal from the boundary line there. That was absolutely amazing on the opposite peak from Bailey Smith.
Mate, and pulled out the old, you'll love this one, Pez, being a Minnesota fan like me, the old D-Lo, ice in the veins celebration there, absolute clutch, Pez. It was absolute clutch. The way he sort of manoeuvred his way around and took a ping, and yes, it was an arsey goal. I don't know if he'd be able to kick it again, but oh my God, was it good. Mate,
I think you're confused. That's not ice in my veins. That's a little bit of Sam Mitchell I'm injecting into my blood and just giving a little bit to the Essendon fans for eliminating them the week before.
Pez, no. Come on, take it to the positive there, mate. That is ice in the veins. That was clutch. And right, let's actually talk about the game, Pez, because this was an interesting game because it was a game that the Western Bulldogs sort of struggled to take control of early. They really, really struggled in that first half. And, especially that first quarter, they let Cameron again went off the leash in that first quarter, Pez. I think he was 3 goals in the first quarter. Was that last week? It was 2 goals. Absolutely amazing for them to let him get off the leash again. Back-to-back finals, first week, off the leash, and took control. And it looked like the Brisbane Lions were going to take this game and kick themselves right into a prelim final.
Yeah, well, Libba was quite impressive early on with a couple of little snaps around the corner, just finding space. Liberatore, love him as a player. And then Charlie Cameron finding plenty of space down the other end. The one that he kicked on the run, Source, from about 45 out across the body, running at full pace. You can't get a harder kick in footy, I don't think. And that was absolutely divine. And you thought Brisbane were going to get on top and, continue to go in the second quarter. And then the Bulldogs just fought back somehow. Now, the biggest thing for me in the game was Oscar McInerney. Now, did he have the dominance that the commentators were talking? I'm not too sure. He grabbed the ball out of the ruck numerous times against the two Bulldogs ruckmen and willed the ball forward and did things like that. But if he's dominating that much, then surely they would continue to dominate up the ground a little bit more. So McInerney was doing his best to get the ball forward, but then Brisbane, or is it the Bulldogs, were defending really well. Brisbane couldn't get the scores when they were going inside 50, which was really worrying.
It's an interesting one, Pez, because I don't know whether it was the Western Bulldogs defenders or the Brisbane Lions forward line really making a mess of it. But you are correct. The ball did continually get banged forward, and that's not how Brisbane was scoring. And it's definitely not, I don't know if it was the Western Bulldogs, stopping it, but if you look at their game style, they were creating contested possessions, they were creating stoppages, and then they were taking the ball from the stoppages. So I guess if you're looking at a defensive mindset, they were able to stop those forward entries and stop them progressing there. But you are correct. It's very interesting when you hear commentators talk about them just blazing the ball forward and how they're dominating in the ruck. And it's like, well, yes, they might be dominating the possession and the hit-outs and, the clearances from a stoppage, but is it resulting in goals? Is it resulting in goal assists? Is it resulting in impact? Probably not.
Yeah, it was. I'm thinking there, McInerney, like, let's do it. You're getting the ball every single time. Let's make this kick forward a little bit more, centered or whatever you need to do to get the ball into your team's hands and continue to go forward. The other thing, you've got Bontempelli, who landed awkwardly on that knee in that fourth quarter, Sauce, and sat the last few minutes off. And for them to get over the line with their superstar on the bench as well is another thing. And kudos to the Western Bulldogs for, sticking around for as long as they did. They had to kick a few goals to get back in with a shot at it. Got the lead, and then Brisbane came back. It was absolutely thrilling, that fourth quarter on the couch.
Yeah, it was absolutely thrilling, Pez. And, I feel like it's one of the, actually, you talked about the Bailey Smith goal, Pez, but the next goal that came straight after, about a minute later, Zach Bailey's goal with 75 seconds there, that was incredible as well. And it's one of those goals that's not going to be talked about ever because, it obviously resulted in a loss, and we're all talking about Bailey Smith. But if Zach Bailey's to be able to manoeuvre through and get that shot off from 45 at full pace, absolutely incredible. But we're also not talking about Bontempelli enough of how good a game he played. Like, he kicked 3 behinds pairs, 3 gettable goals that he would normally eat up for breakfast. He could have one of the great final berths, 29 disposals, 3 goals. And he was fantastic. And you're right, though. It was good to see the Western Bulldogs actually hold on and, win a game with their superstar on the bench. Has flown over to Perth, Pez. They are hopeful that he will get onto the park against Port Adelaide on Saturday night, but it's definitely going to be an anxious wait for Western Bulldogs fans.
You got any news on Stefan Martin? Is his season done?
Stefan Martin? No, I don't have any.
Yeah.
Is he playing still?
No, well, he is for the Bulldogs. He was a big piece and a reason to their success early in the year. And I think they've really struggled with him in the last 5 or 6 weeks without him in the ruck and having to put English in there as their number one ruck, and then Lewis Young as a secondary ruckman. So I think against Port Adelaide, and with Port Adelaide's strength in their midfield as well as the Bulldogs, I think they can try and take advantage a little bit better than Brisbane did coming up in the prelim final. So that's just some early mail, I think, unless Stefan Martin is miraculously back for whatever reason.
Well, on the 21st of August, Pez, they were talking about that he could be coming back for the final, so it could be something that he could be up for selection there. It was a groin injury that he was really struggling with, but they do need to work that out because the Bulldogs definitely have that deficit when they when they don't have that established ruckman in there, because they've got a couple of holes that we've talked about a couple of times, Pez, with Josh Bruce out in that forward line, and they just don't have the bodies to fill it at the moment.
Yeah, they don't. One other player that he was getting booed, Josh Shackey, who wanted to leave the Brisbane Lions really early when he got a high draft pick over there, but he kicked a goal and was rapt to do it in Bulldogs colours at the Gabba against all those Brisbane Lions fans who were booing him. I think this is one of the finals games where you had players that have played for both clubs. It was kind of strange to see, and we'll see it more and more in the future. Well, when players, move clubs more freely.
Yeah, you had the Friday night game with GWS and Jeremy Cameron's first game against his former side, and I guess not as a popular and a sort of a stand name of Shacky there, Pez, but you're right, two big names, not two big names, but two previous clubs players, and they were able to win a final, and both of those teams got the win against their old club, which is good for Geelong fans and good for the Doggies fans.
Yeah, we had Marcus Adams as well, which used to play for the Bulldogs, but he couldn't get the win on the other side. But Brisbane would have to be absolutely shattered by that. Bulldogs fans absolutely ecstatic, over the moon, doing whatever they can to do. They will be. We don't know if they'll be with Bontempelli or not, but it's looking like they'll be without Cody Waitman, who got subbed out with a concussion. But I did hear that it might just be a knock to the head, not actually a concussion test. So he could be available in the next week's Source.
Well, then he shouldn't have been subbed off, Bets. If
It was
it's
just a head knock. It wasn't concussion.
well, hang on a tick. That's I don't know about that one,
Might,
Pez. I think that's
might be the finals concussion rule.
the finals concussion rule. I really hope we don't have to be talking about this grand final week because, we are all for head injuries and making sure that the players are going through the right protocols to ensure, the best possible result for them in their future. But we don't want to be talking about that, Pez. A player, trying to rort the system or a club trying to rort the system just to win a football game. It's not on.
Yeah, well, hopefully, I'm pretty sure the week off is going to be after the prelim because the grand final's set for the 25th of September. So there's the Brownlow weekend to happen in between there. So I think if a player gets concussed this weekend, it's a 14-day concussion rule. I think they should be able to make it. But what if the team plays on Saturday night?
Saturday night, they won't be able to. No,
So
it's,
that's
12 days. 12 days, I think, Pez. I think it's 12 days.
12 days. Oh, well, here's hoping. I was just trying to create some controversy there.
Sorry.
With,
I think it's 15 days.
It'd be a big advantage playing on the Friday night if that was the case and there was 15 days away and the concussion rule was 14 days. That would be massive.
It would be massive, Pez. But next week, we are set up for some amazing prelims. And it's a little bit of a shame that we're going to have to wait that extra week between the grand final because the AFL is locked in on the 25th. They must have... I'm not sure what else they've got on, Pez. I don't know why they're so locked in on that date. You think that if you've got the games there and you've got the bodies to play, you just run through and just play it.
Yeah, it's hard because there's contracts and things like that, and they missed the bye at the end of the season because they had the COVID scare around Australia with lockdowns, and they just wanted to get games done while they could, which is why I thought maybe they'll move the grand final a little bit forward, but we think it will stay put, and those two teams will just isolate and do the things. Interesting to say that because I was listening to Jeremy Cameron on Friday night, source after the game, and they hadn't been in Western Australia for a 14-day quarantine yet, and it still counts if they go and play footy and go back. The quarantine continues. So if Geelong had have lost, they would have had to fly back to Geelong that night or next morning and do a 14-day quarantine and then go into lockdown, as the town of Geelong is. But because they won, they stay in Perth, they're going to finish their 14-day quarantine. And if they lose against Melbourne on the weekend, or they make the grand final and they lose that, they don't have to go back to Victoria. They can go anywhere else. So they can travel to Queensland where parts of it isn't locked down, and they can go, a little holiday or something.
Mad Monday, here we go.
Go back to lockdown in Victoria. So I found that really interesting.
That is really interesting. I know that during the week, the Western Bulldogs were a little bit unhappy with a similar sort of situation because GWS did the similar sort of thing where they travelled straight over to Perth and they were able to play some golf. And the Western Bulldogs were not able to. They were sort of locked to their room for the 12, 14 hours, and they did sort of kick up a little of a stink. That's unlike the Bulldogs, though, Pez, to kick up a stink about something that's not really relevant.
No, well, Bulldogs haven't had any need to kick up a stink in the past 2 weeks, have they? It's been a dream finals run at the moment, and 5 years ago, the dream continued for another 2 weeks. So see if we can do that for the Bulldogs fans. We've got 3 Victorian sides and 1 interstate side. So I am all on Port Adelaide's bandwagon.
Yeah, Pez, so am I. I do not want another repeat of the old, best 4 weeks in history as they continually talk about. And if you talk to anyone that doesn't like the Bulldogs, they'll give you the asterisks all over those games.
Which is really hard for me on Friday night, Source. Always wanting to root for the interstate club if my club's not in it. So you got Melbourne versus Geelong. I think I want it to be a draw and then extra time be a draw and then another draw. And then they just go, you know what? We'll eliminate both of you. Let's hand the premiership to Port Adelaide.
Well, I think, Pez, you think you should be on Geelong there because I know that you don't want to go for interstate sides, but Melbourne is in the same sort of, the same city as St Kilda, Pez. It is the city. So you definitely, if you're looking at the team that is the further away from St Kilda, it has to be the Geelong, Pez. And we know that you got a soft spot for the boys in blue and white.
Definitely not. But there's a lot of different blue and white in the AFL, and I don't think I do. But it's going to be a tough watch. Hopefully, it's a good game on the Friday night. But we've spoken about both the sides that have been eliminated, Source, but we haven't done the little season over. So let's get that going.
Season over.
Season over, Pez, and what we do for this one is we go through the 2 teams that are eliminated, and I guess they're finishing 5th and 6th, Pez, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Giants finish 6th. Is that correct? I always can't work out where they finish in this one.
Yeah, well, Brisbane, we had the higher spot on the ladder before the game. So both those sides got eliminated, but GWS did finish lower within the season, so actually finish lower overall.
All right, and what we do for this one, Pez, as we sort of alluded to, we talk about the season that was for the GWS Giants, what went wrong, what went right, what they need to do for next year, and we give them a nice little hashtag. Pez, would you like to start this one off?
Yeah, so GWS, we spoke about them a little bit. They had injuries, had some silly suspensions and things like that. They were quite impressive in the latter part of the year to make the finals, get a win against Sydney, but very disappointing at the start of the year, and we spoke about a lot of players not being on the par. It wasn't ideal what happened for them in the end because Clarko was available, and all I wanted to happen was little Clarko's cluster up at GWS, but that's not able to happen. So Leon Cameron's got to, he's going to keep his job obviously and come up with something different and maybe make some bold moves in the free agency trade period as well, and put Canelio up on the spot. I'm not sure how much you'd be able to get for him, but put him out there, fish a little bit. For this one, I think this player has rejuvenated his career, and for their whole season, he's going to be a big part of their season going forward. So I've gone hashtag Hogan's Heroes, because if this guy can continue to play how he did in the last 4 weeks of the season, they can put all their midfield back around. You've got Tom Green, who's still up and coming. You've got Kelly out there. You've got Taranto, who plays up forward and in the midfield. Toby Green, one of the best players in the competition. They can be really dangerous. So Hogan's Heroes for mine.
Yeah, I like that one, Pez. I like what you said there about, they had a lot of injuries throughout the year, but it's an interesting one because they started off really poorly, Pez. If you remember early on when we were calling for Clarko's head, we were calling for Leon Cameron to get the sack, they were 0-3. They had some really bad losses, Pez. They had a draw against North Melbourne, the team that finished last, and a loss to the Hawks as well. So, there's 5 wins that are pretty, 5 losses, sorry, that really sort of stopped them from progressing a lot further in the finals. They have won 4 of the last 5 years they've won a final. Now, for a team that we continually talk about, Pez, who need to make that next step, that next jump, it's a pretty impressive, record, realistically.
Yeah, well, he's exactly right. Considering the first 6 weeks was probably really, really horrible with some horrible, horrible, horrible losses. They get to, prove that they can do it over a whole season, but they haven't had players available for a whole season in many, many years.
And that's where my hashtag comes, Fez, and it might sound familiar because I actually used this a couple of weeks ago. I've gone hashtag where's the green. Exact same thing, because these players that they talk about, so where's the green, we're talking about Tom Green, Toby Green, they need to stay in the team. They need to make sure that they get their list management right. Again, we're talking about the lack of players available at the end of the season. And we've sort of talked about this the last couple of years. When they have been healthy and they've been fit, we've seen them make a grand final. That's what we want from these teams. I love what you've said about, off being a little bit bold during the trade period. They've got a lot of elite players from those, obviously, when they came into the league and that draft that they went through where they got 10 of the first, 30 picks before they were 18 or some rubbish, setup that they had. I think it's actually the time, Pez, to be a little bit bold. And we've seen with they've got less players on the field that their game plan actually works a lot better with less elite players on the field. And they're actually able to get more cattlemen for the areas that they need, rather than 4 or 5 players that play the exact same position and do the exact same things, and they're struggling for the old the me time, Pez. So I actually like what you said there about moving someone on and maybe being a little bit bold and pick up some pieces that they actually need. Hogan would be fantastic in that forward line if he can stay fit and healthy. Remember when he burst on the scene against with Melbourne? He was fantastic and he had 40 goals in the first 10 games and looked unstoppable. Hopefully he can recapture that this end of his career.
Yeah, and he's shown glimpses of it last season, which is really good. Wasn't able to work out at Fremantle, but can go ahead there. So GWS looking bright. It'll be interesting when people do their ladder predictors if you can trust GWS to win enough games and be back there in the finals. But they really, if they want to compete, they've got to make that top 4 jump, and that's going to be really tough for them to do with their current list. So a few changes to be made. But the next side. We spoke about heartbreaking 1-point loss and out in straight sets as well for the second time in a few years, which isn't ideal for the Brisbane Lions.
Yeah, this one, Pez. The Brisbane Lions had a really, really impressive season. Fagan sort of talked about this being one of their best seasons, but they scraped into the top four. They went out in straight sets. I don't know if you can actually say that. They did have a lot of injuries that sort of came at the wrong time, and they had a rough start to the season, similar to what GWS did. I've gone with the hashtag Dandelions, Pez, because I just don't know. Like everyone, they're all acting like everything's dandy and good, but there's a range of different things that are happening that I don't know if they're going to be able to reboost and go again. They do have a younger list. They do sort of, at the start of the year, a lot of people were picking them as top four, but they're losing Neale, which was a bit of a concern. The Dan from Dandelion, they had Joe Danaher into that forward line that sort of created that structure, but that structure only works if they've got the cattle there and the injuries there to do. So for me, I'm a little bit worried about how they go again. What's this, the fourth shot at it since they've come there? They've made 4 years, they've made 4 top 4 finishes, and I think they've won 2 finals during that time.
Yeah, well, big things to come, especially losing Brownlow medals in Lockie Neale. They've got 2 players in Hipwood and Rayner coming back off ACLs next season as well. So interesting to see how they go. I like your hashtag there, Source. I've got one that's very relevant and only come about starting to think about it on the Sunday night is Neale down and McStay, because you're going to have to just, kneel down to the powers above at Brisbane and Lockie Neale, suck it up and stay for one more year and give it a real red hot crack.
Yeah, I like that, Pez. We've already sort of spoken about it at the start that they have. Their list is good enough to have made a grand final. And if Neale walks away, Brownlow medalist walks away, and they haven't made a grand final, which they haven't, it's a massive disappointment for the Brisbane Lions. They've got a lot of young players that are starting to hit those prime, that prime sort of their career. You talk about, McCluggage and Bailey and, your mate Rayner. You look at Lincoln McCarthy. They've got a lot of players around the ground at that 25, 26 mark. This is when they need those elite heads in Neale in there. They need, they've probably only got a couple more years of Lyon and Rich and the barometer, Mitch Robinson, Pez. Like, they haven't got many years from these guys, Charlie Cameron as well, to capitalise on these opportunities. And I would not be letting a player go, a Brownlow medalist, if that, walk away with 1 year on the contract when we've just finished a top 4 finish and the third one in 4 years.
Mate, you say the barometer and Mitch Robinson, which we all agree with, but how do you reckon the actual self-proclaimed barometer's feeling in Reece Matheson? He might have a spot in this Brisbane Lions side now that Lockie Neale goes out.
Yeah, he'd be licking his lips, Pez, but not what we're going to talk about. We don't talk about Brisbane's season over, and we're talking about him as the barometer, Reece Matheson. Definitely not that, Pez.
Oh, well, I just thought I'd mention it. You say barometer, that's all you can think about when someone self-proclaims himself as it, but it sits on the substitute bench most of the season. But Brisbane are in with a shot, but got a little bit of work to do during the summer to reboot into season 2022.
Yeah, they really do, Pez. I would hope that they are competing again next year. I hope that they keep Neale. Or if they give up Neale, I hope they get something decent for them that makes them better. But I can't see them getting anything better than an ex-Brownlow medalist.
No, that's always the thing. You're never going to get anything.
Maybe they do a stripe swap for the Fife. There you go.
Geez, Fife in that Brisbane side, it's a nice talking point. But that's just making stuff up, Source, because that's not going to happen. He's Fremantle for life, that bloke. But That sums us up on this Monday night, Source. We'll probably, after the teams are announced, 6:25 on Thursday, we can go straight into our bet slip. So we review how we went in the semi-finals. If you want to find out already, check it out on Twitter @BehindTheBound. And then we put our bets forth for the prelim final, Source. And just to ruin it, if people haven't checked Twitter yet, we had a bloody good round.
We did, Pez. That seems to be the trend for the last month, Pez. And I would be really, really surprised, Pez, for a 4th year in a row if we don't finish the season in positive. It would have to be catastrophic to end up in the negatives, Pez, but looking good at the moment.
The brain fade to miss that would be worse than Toby Green walking into an umpire at halftime or 3/4 time in a first final. So that brain fade, surely one of us can't do that. But you don't want to, put all your eggs in one basket. You got to still do the work and put the time in and get the right results in 3 games of footy and a Brownlow medal night as well. So We've got a little bit more time for profit, and we're going to enjoy that while we can, because over the summer we've got to wait probably until the NBA comes back on until we, have something to watch each day.
And Pez, I'm going to say it, for the 4th year in a row, we could actually have a Brownlow show. Because every year we say we're going to have a Brownlow show, but with the week off, surely we can get one in there, Pez, because we have talked about how profitable Brownlow night has been there. But unfortunately, it happens on the school holidays, and generally we've had too many beers and we can't normally get it done.
Well, that's the issue, isn't it? Where you can actually, meet up year after year on the holidays and not have to go to work the next day and just get on the sauce, so to speak. But this year we're in lockdown, so we probably don't have a case to do that and go anywhere. But you know what? We're probably going to do it over Zoom or something anyway, and then be too pissed to jump on and record a show.
Yeah, this is stock standard, Pez. 4 years in a row we're calling it. I'm feeling good about this year, though, Pez. The Brownlow show, watch this space.
Yeah, I think Sauce is planning to jump on by himself and just speak to the Brownlow there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and a little bit of fun going with the end of the season for those clubs. Condolences to GWS and the Brisbane Lions, because their season is over. We have season over for 3 more teams only, because one of them is going to be the eventual premiere of the 2021 AFL season and the first grand final hosted at our favourite stadium, SBS Stadium Source.
Very exciting stuff, Pez. It's a real shame for a range of those fans that they're not going to be able to see their team compete for a premiership, but it is exciting. I know on Saturday night they continually showed that reverse angle up high through the little gaps there, and the stadium looks immaculate. It's going to be a fantastic spectacle at SBS Stadium, and it's, as Pez, as you said, it's one of our favourites. It is the best stadium outside of the MCG, and it's going to be good.
Mate, one thing I was going to sign off, okay? I was going to do it, but I do have one more thing to say, and it's because I've mentioned it before, but Eddie McGuire, doesn't he piss me off something shocking? He is a shithouse commentator that just wants to yell and scream all the time, and he's put in his little bid to go over to Western Australia because he's the caller and he wants to take his family over there, his sons or whatever, to go and watch the grand final. Piss off. I'm glad it was rejected, Eddie, and I hope he doesn't get his little... when he, retaliates and goes, I want to do this for this reason. And I'm not sure why it was news on my TV all week that Eddie McGuire can't go across because over there, but no one else can either. So, Eddie, stay at home in Melbourne or Broadmeadows or wherever you're from. Try not to commentate the footy, because I don't like listening to you yelling and screaming when it's so fake.
Wow. There's Pez's rant. Jesus, Pez. Might have to get a little segment for you going, Pez. The Pez dispenser actually unloads all the candy. Jesus. Get all over it, Pez.
No, I'm dead set serious. I hate listening to him as a commentator now, because he just goes on, and that scream in my ears, it just makes my ears bleed, and I just don't enjoy cleaning blood out of my ears after listening to him commentate a footy game.
Don't enjoy getting blood out of my ears like anyone enjoys that, Pez. Come on, mate, wrap it up. Get off your high horse.
Yeah, well, I'm Pez. Peace out.
I'm still Sauce. We'll catch up, hopefully with a calmer Pez next time.